like that.
I got accused of not paying attention to my YouTube side,
Yeah.
and I usually always open the browser. I got accused of not paying attention to my. I had to turn it down because there's no way to turn the sound off other than turning the phone down. Honeycomb, won't you be my baby? Honeycomb, be my gal. Sweet little honeycomb. An old country song. How you doing, honeycomb? We are Man Cave Mobile. And we are on YouTube at the same time, so I was told it's spam and deceptive practices is to be on YouNow, broadcasting to YouTube, advertising my YouNow platform. And why do they have it integrated? They're not supposed to use it. Why is it integrated into the system? If it's deceptive, bad practices to use it. Buffy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Another likes to do 5 pearl likes at a time. Okay. How is ya? Saw my old truck that I sold in the Walmart parking lot. Kind of had seller's remorse, and I really guess I shouldn't have. And be happy it's gone to someone that's some good use out of it. I'm still looking for another truck. I'll find one.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to find an old C10 Chevy like my dad had. Well, I used to have. I had 2 of them. They're both good vehicles. If I'd have taken better care of them, and still could have drove a lot more out of them. But I was a lead foot. Speedometer read 140. I should be going that fast.
I don't know what that is, but it's darn hell.
beat up the clutch, spun the tires one too many times, ate up the clutches, all that kind of shit. Bay door open, yes he does. I know we got frozen, I don't want to be too long. I'll just say hi real quick, talk to him in a minute. Go see mommy.
Hurry up, booger butt. Come here with me. You stay here. What are you doing? You need water and you need food. I'm gonna get you, boy. Restart that one. What's it doing, baby? What's it doing, bubby bub? What's it doing, cute bubby? Yeah. you do that? This is bullshit. Okay, so I got all the evens, now I gotta get the odd ones. Bubby, 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 I'm gonna get you, Bubby. I am. I'm gonna get you, Bubby. Come on, John. Two. I already got that. I left up there, ready to go. You are my baby. Hey, Bobby. I need to eat. I need to eat, sweetheart. Okay, that's all done.
Should cost me about $1,000 to get anybody to do that engine swap for me. I can't get that bill to get up off his ass and get the shit done. I'm gonna find someone else that'll do it. Even if I gotta pay this house somehow. Hey vegan. Hey Trav.
You won't help you?
He didn't even really want to work on it. Too old. I said, dude, I'm not talking about doing the whole thing. I just need the drive line swapped over and I can finish buttoning it up.
Yeah.
I just need someone to get the biggest portion of it done, then I can take care of the rest of it. I said, I can have the car completely torn apart and everything out of the way, you know.
Yeah.
I told him, unbolt the front cross member, these are unibody cars. And you can unbolt from just about where that door post is, over here, and up in the front of the body, and lift the body right off the whole front end. The struts and everything will just stay right there. Then you unhook the steering column off of it, unhook the struts off, unhook the strut towers, and the 4 bolts that hold the K-frame in place, and then disconnect the brake lines, fuel line, undo the electrical harness, the big plug you take off, the harness, and everything else can stay right there. I could damn near do it on that solar panel frame if I had the cars turned around the other way. The asset sticking out. But then I could lift it, take the front end loose, and then roll it forward. You know? But if I don't want to mess with that, I can take the motor tranny out as a one-piece unit. But then you got transmission fluid to deal with because when you take the CVs, the transmission's going to go dry.
All right.
Do it the other way, you don't even lose any transmission fluid. No essential fluid lost except for antifreeze.
Right.
And a little bit of brake fluid from disconnected brake lines. Oh, it's beautiful out.
No rain in that cloudy sky.
I told Mama we had a convertible day. Yeah, drive the convertible.
takes it like that. Orange case is dead ends at
No mail.
Quackenbush Road.
No mail. I didn't come out and mow the lawn, so.
You scratched Mommy's leg.
I'm gonna have to move this thing anyway, so. It just means we gotta walk a little farther with the groceries. Gary said our clones will be about next week.
Yeah.
Oh, you son of a bitch thing. I gotta get that idle straightened out. That's all there is to it.
Somebody barked in there. Sounds like Loki.
Yeah, she's the one that makes all the noise for the most part. Noisy old bitch.
Noisy little bitch. About right. Oh, shit. Yes.
Come on, dum-dum. Rex. Come on, Bobby.
Come on up. Come on, boy. Come on, son.
Off my finger. Oh my God. I gotta get the milk sitting on a step to the door. Oh. Okay. I can't get the milk from standing in the way there. Oh.
I'm trying very hard.
I can't get the milk from standing in the way there. Hi, Pitch. How you doing? Shut up, idiot.
Open the damn door. Down. Down. Down, baby. Get down, Chipper. Get down. No. Uh-huh. I have groceries in my hand. I am not going to let you. I have to go to the kitchen.
First plan always gives new and existing customers the same great device deals, and you're upgrade ready a year early. Right now, bring your phone to T-Mobile and get one of the latest 5G smartphones free. Hello? Yes, I'm free. And so, no, tied up at all. Surely this is too many roads. Free. Go back to Plus and T-Mobile. When I was but a child.
Bitch.
Bipolar 1, I got help to push back. I got help to push back. We got help to push back with Uvalde. Once daily prescription Uvalde is proven to treat manic or mixed episodes of bipolar 1 in adults to help you push back. Elderly patients with dementia have an increased risk of death or stroke. Do not take Lybalvi if you are taking opioids or are in opioid withdrawal. The samidorphan in Lybalvi can cause severe opioid withdrawal that can lead to hospitalization or increased risk of life-threatening overdose. Get emergency help if you have trouble breathing, become very drowsy with slowed or shallow breathing, or feel faint, very dizzy, or confused. Or if you have fever, stiff muscles, confusion, rash, swollen glands, or problems with your liver, kidneys, heart, or lungs. Other serious side effects may include high cholesterol, weight gain, potentially fatal high blood sugar, uncontrolled body movements, which may be permanent, dizziness upon standing or falls. Are you ready to push back against bipolar 1? Ask your doctor if Lybalvi is right for you. If I would have kept making only the minimum payments on my credit cards, my debt would have taken me 47 years to pay off. Whether it's credit card, medical, or personal loan debt, National Debt Relief negotiates with your creditors to reduce the amount you owe. National Debt Relief reduced my debt by about 40%. And you could be debt-free in as little as 24 to 48 months. Call or visit nationaldebtrelief.com to find out how you can become debt-free. Ever wonder why Kit Kats are so delightfully crispy? There's your answer. 1, 2, 3. Tasty wafers covered in creamy milk chocolate. Isn't it nice wafers are having their moment? Have a break. Have a Kit Kat. Add mint to the moment with Mint Duos.
Yeah, she's really.
All of us on the same bed, huh? I'm a bit of a nice winter. I wake up drenched.
Aquafina is Nora from Queens. All new tonight at 10:30. Only on Comedy Central.
Here you go.
I gotta ask, what's with the tea? You make it for me, you make it for Lindsay.
Well, I've got a little philosophy. When someone's nice enough to let me into their home or their pants, I like to show my appreciation.
Without spending any money.
You know me so well.
So, recap. How'd your dinner go?
Oh, pretty well, actually. The grandmas were on their best behavior, and the two boys, well, let's just say they're going to be living with us for a long, long time. And you?
Oh, good. Really good.
So everything's okay with Zoe?
That's fantastic. Sounds like everything's great with you and Lindsay, huh?
Oh, yeah, more than good. Oh, grab the honey.
She owns her own home, right?
Yeah. I think I may be coming down with something. Previously on 2.5 Men.
Why don't you move in with me?
What?
Yeah, you and Ava move in with me. I love you, and I want you in my life. I want to have a future with you.
If Ava and I move in, isn't somebody going to have to move out?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
6 months. I haven't scanned any of them in 6 months.
Yes, out with the bag.
Hey, Gothy.
Good morning. Hey, I'm glad you're up. I wanted. Whoa. Sorry. Is that really a good workout?
Oh, yeah, it's great for the circulation, stretches the spine.
Your bowl is hanging out.
Back in the bar.
Listen, it's spring break this week, so Zoe and her daughter are gonna stay.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like a trial run. see what it's like to live together before we decide to do anything permanent.
Oh, that's a good idea. Living together is tricky. Sorry. Of course, it's going to be a little tight with all of us living here.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to talk to you about.
No, don't worry. I'll tell Jake about this. Don't make myself scared. You don't even know I'm here.
Actually, I'm going to need you to...
Doc Ivan.
Yeah, you and Zoe don't really gel, so I just thought it'd be for the best.
Hey.
Jill with pretty much everybody. That's where I'm positively gelatinous.
Just went to town. Gonna go out and try to start the lawnmower and mow a little bit. As soon as I get my hour in on this.
Understand that no one is rooting for your personal happiness more than I am. It's good to hear. Thank you. Oh, no. Thank you, buddy. No reason to panic. Just gotta find a temporary new home.
Sarah, thank you.
I'm taking a break.
Did we just get...
Yeah.
Royal match. Play now.
She's adorable.
Maybe to her mother. When someone is trying to get into her mother's pants.
All right, look, it's not going to be any extra work for you. Whatever Zoe doesn't take care of, I'll handle.
Really? You're going to take care of the 7-year-old?
Yeah. We get along great. And besides, I got to learn sometime. I mean, Zoe and I get married. I'll be able to step in.
You know, once upon a time, a cute little boy came to live in this house for a few days. Maybe you've met him. He's the pot-soaked, masturbating couch potato who eats all your cookies.
Is he the one who finished off my macaroons?
Your macaroons in my pot. My point being, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I want a fully funded 401k and a Camaro.
It's just going to be for a week, and it's just the three of us.
Really? Did Zippy finally hang himself?
Thank you, Sarah, for becoming a fan.
I want to see what it's like to live like a family with a housekeeper.
Who's got a retirement plan and a muscle car.
If you don't want to help me with this, I will find another housekeeper who's willing to do very little work for a very large salary in a Malibu beach house.
You're cute, but you got a mean streak.
Oh,
Here we go. What do you think?
Don't sound so exhausted. It's not.
no, we had to go to town. It's a little warm out today.
Is it?
This was convertible weather, man.
Well, why aren't you out there in your convertible?
I was.
Yeah,
Mom
I don't see
and
any
I-
burn on the top of your head.
Mom and I went to the grocery store and back. Well, I still had my hat on.
Yeah. So you saved all the exciting trips. Is that it?
Yeah, we went to
How you
town to
been,
get.
Johnny?
Huh?
How you been?
Well, it's a dog eat dog world, and I'm wearing milk bone underwear.
What's the matter with you?
Another day, another. Wow,
What's pissing you off, buddy?
nothing's pissing me off.
You
I,
sound like it.
I spoke with the solar panel people today,
And
working on getting some stuff rectified. I told them I'm not really happy with the system, not at all.
it doesn't
And-
generate enough.
They got looking at it and finally got someone to agree with me that they didn't do the proper amount of panels. So I'm going to be getting some in free,
Yeah, there you go.
and I might end up with another whole row of them. And
I
try to
mean,
get me
do
a
they
little bit closer
actually
to what
generate anything, the ones that you got? I mean, for a while we were speculating how little they generated.
it's a 12 kilowatt system.
None of this means anything to me. I'm just speaking in generalities. I don't understand.
Yeah, it does, but it just doesn't do what I want it to do. Not enough.
Not enough.
And
Will
I
another
told them,
row of panels accomplish that for you?
I told them remember what the salesman told me and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking with one of the big honchos at the moment. I mean, not right this minute, of course, but yeah,
Right.
I was talking and stuff. And he went and reviewed my system and my contract and everything else. And he says, yeah, it does look like we're going to end up owing you a couple of panels.
Right.
And to make it, more right.
Uh-huh.
So I think he's going to come down and physically look at the panels system himself.
Okay.
So it's just a brief negotiation. I spoke with him today. I spoke with him yesterday, actually, and then they called me back today and told me what he saw in his review and everything else. So we'll see
You'll see what's what.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I got to go. I got a phone call coming. I got to go.
All right.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yep. Never fails. We get in the middle of a good conversation. We get interrupted. Oh, well.
You can always spot a first timer. Gain plays with Oxy Booster for freeze. Jim adores his wife, but since he jokes like this, now he's good. She's left him. Michelle?
Royal match. Play now.
At Nutro, we believe in growing healthy dogs. Our nutritious food is made with natural ingredients to help dogs live full and active lives. Let's grow healthy dogs.
Will get you a break when you need it. Yeah, with flexible payment options, keep you covered. Just tag us in. Roll with the general.
At Domino's, we are obsessed with delivery.
So it breaks our heart when we see delivery done wrong.
Like soggy fries. They're cold, they're soggy, and they don't deliver well.
We knew we had to do something about it. Turns out the solve wasn't about a
In 2006, a 15-year-old boy runs the Chicago PD with a bag full of cash, but he tells the cops that it is all counterfeit and that there's a hell of a lot more in his dad's apartment. So the police check it out, and goddamn, was this kid right. $89,000 in counterfeit bills, and the dad was placed under arrest. But what the police don't realize was these counterfeits weren't created by the dad, but actually by the 15-year-old boy. So why the hell would a son ever rat on his own dad? Well, if your dad is Art Williams Jr., the most prolific counterfeiter in American history, perhaps it's more believable he would do it rather than you. He'd worked for the mob, made millions of counterfeit bills, all while evading the feds for a decade. The Secret Service considers him one of the greatest counterfeits of all time, and the story of how Art Jr. got there is wild. Art Jr. didn't have a conventional childhood. Growing up in the Chicago projects, his first memory was watching his mom and dad rob a truck full of TVs. And by the age of 9, his mom was institutionalized for schizophrenia. And soon, his dad abandoned them. But as a teenager, when his mom got on medication and was able to work a job, she had met a slick Italian boyfriend named Da Vinci. He had money, he had class, and more importantly, he treated his mom well. But at the age of 17, Art Jr. knocked up his 14-year-old girlfriend, and with no job, he started stealing cars to make ends meet. But within a couple of weeks, he was caught and sentenced to 3 months in juvenile hall. Da Vinci was upset that Art Jr. felt the need to steal, but he was glad that he was still a minor when he was caught, because that could have been years in prison, so he could easily still turn his life around. So like the father Art never had, Da Vinci takes him to his work to show him a better way to make money. So in a sketchy alley next to an abandoned railroad track, Da Vinci opens the door to his shop. Filled with barrels of ink and press machines, it looked like a neighborhood print shop for flyers. But at the end of the production line were stacks of $20 bills. Da Vinci was a counterfeit, and he had learned the craft from his father, he learned it from his grandfather. All the lineage of the family trade going all the way back to Italy. And he wanted to pass down that trade to Art Jr. Now, by the end of the Civil War, 1 in 3 bills of all American currency was counterfeit. And with the rampant war debt just skyrocketing, Abraham Lincoln created the Secret Service to hunt down these counterfeits. And strangely, it was on the same day he was assassinated. Well, 20 years later, the Secret Service brought down that number to 1 counterfeit for every 3,000 bills. By the 1980s, that number was 1 counterfeit bill for every...
Yeah, I got somebody here, so... Well, I thought someone was here, but they're not. So I thought someone was here, but they're not.
Every 10,000 bills. Let's just say the Secret Service got damn good at catching counterfeits, and Da Vinci knew what he was doing was a dying art that could only be passed down. So he taught Art the old school counterfeiting way, mixing inks, offset prints, plate making, attention to detail, and the rules of the game. Number 1, never tell anyone. Number 2, never spend your counterfeit money, only sell it. And number 3, never be greedy. If you print too much, you will be caught. Within the months, Art had become a student of the counterfeit game, taking his apprenticeship as seriously as a college degree, and knew that he had finally found his calling in life. And he had felt like Da Vinci was the father that he never had. 3 months later, Da Vinci was nowhere to be found. He couldn't be reached by phone, he hadn't dropped by the house. And as the weeks went on, the thoughts about maybe where he had gone only got darker. Had he been arrested? Was he taken out by the mob? Now, Art didn't want to raise suspicions by driving by his print shop or even asking his friends in the mob where Da Vinci was at. So Art would have to take Da Vinci as another man who would abandon him in his life, just like his father. So without the money to start his own counterfeiting business, his dreams of counterfeiting disappeared. He would have to go back to hustling on the streets. And by now, dealing cocaine was all of the rage in the hood. And rather than just being another neighborhood coke dealer, Art gets a bit creative with it. He rents a Chevy Caprice in black. He puts an antenna on top. He puts red strobe lights on top of the dash and tops it all off with a fake police badge on top of his Hawaiian shirt. He would follow drug dealers around for hours. He would pull them over, search their car, take everything they had, bang them on the head with the mag light, knocking them out, and take off in his Caprice, laughing all the way. But is robbing drug dealers at gunpoint really a sustainable career? No. I mean, he was making 15 grand per hit, and after a couple of these hits, Art had a pretty decent sized nest egg. So he decides he's gonna get married to his girlfriend. And he tells her that he's finally leaving the criminal life behind because now he has a sweet gig in construction. It pays well, babe, but the hours are long. And every morning when she dropped him off at work, Art would walk down the street to a secretly rented apartment. He purchased an old school press, barrels of ink, process cameras, and even plates, and even a new computer program, Photoshop. Now, Da Vinci had never used computers in his counterfeiting, but Art thought maybe he can combine the old school and the new school counterfeiting to create a bill that was better than what anyone had ever seen. And oh boy, did these bills look goddamn real. But just like in Breaking Bad, you can make the best meth in town, but if you have no one to sell it to, what's the point? So he gets involved in the underworld of Chicago, making a name for himself. He sells counterfeits to ladies of the night, drug dealers, and even taxi cab drivers who would hand fake $5 bills back as change. So with the sales team to handle distribution, Art was making about $50,000 a month. Although the business was growing, Art always remembered what Da Vinci said, don't get too greedy. But he thought, who's gonna notice if he gets a new car? Parties at the strip club, gets VIP tickets at the ball game. I mean, that's what people with normal jobs do, right? But his wife had her suspicions. Even though he was taking care of the family beyond what she ever thought was possible, could a construction worker really make all of that money? And with his wife now starting her training at the police academy, she knew something sketchy was going on. So in 1993, she would file for divorce, and this absolutely destroyed Art. While the money was good in counterfeiting, the consequences weren't. He had now lost his only son, and the woman he had loved. Now he thought maybe Chicago had made him this way, so he skipped out of town to go live with his mom in the green state of Texas. But going to church on Sundays and having dinner at 6, he couldn't help but think about how thrilling his old life was. Until at a bar, he met a smoking hot blonde, Natalie. With her street smarts, she knew the art of the scam, and was more than happy to indulge in her darker side. She often hung out with drug dealers, give them a little roofie, and just rob them blind. But rather than see this as like a huge red flag, for Art, it was really love at first sight. Because, you know, she was down the clown, she'd be down the counterfeit. And Art knew he needed to lock her down. So after a few dates, he lays out a plan for the two of them. They'd get married, they'd move back to Chicago, go rent a shop, get in contact with the old sales team, and get back in the counterfeit game. The fall of the Soviet Union, economic chaos. Everyone wanted a stable currency in the 90s, and that was the $100 bill. But there was a big problem. With advancements in printers and scanners, counterfeits became rampant in the 1990s. But why? Well, the $100 bill had had the same exact design since 1929. So the feds needed to develop a bill that couldn't just be printed out, a counterfeit-proof currency.
The new $100 bill was released today. The U.S. Treasury is making $80 billion of the new and improved note. The new money is expected to help stop counterfeiting.
That was the series 1996 $100 bill. Now, this was a huge deal because unlike before where no one really checked their cash, everyone was looking for the watermark, the UV ink, the color-shifting ink. Banks were exchanging the old bills for new ones as fast as they could. Some businesses wouldn't even accept a old $100 bill. And the public thought that there was no way a bill could be fake if it had a watermark. And that became the flaw, because Art knew if he could somehow fake these security features, he would have the perfect counterfeit. And he would become obsessed with cracking the 1996 $100. But how do you fake a watermark or microprinting or even a security threat? I mean, Da Vinci had never taught him that. Well, what Art came up with is borderline genius. Now, I don't take a lot of sponsorships on the channel unless they actually believe in the product. And personally, I've actually owned a Ridge wallet for the last 2 years that I bought on my own, and I've loved it. So when they hit me up to do a sponsorship deal, I was like, hell yeah. You see, once you get used to a wallet like this, that old leather one with the seams all tearing apart, it just looks like an antique. But this is compact, it's slick, holds 12 cards, literally is bulletproof. It has over 50,000 5-star reviews, and to top it all off, Ridge has got a lifetime warranty, so a Ridge wallet is for life. Now, if you're like me, my dad is always the hardest person to get a Christmas gift for. This year, I got him good. I got the Ridge wallet with the forged gold and the money clip, and man, he's gonna love it. And for myself, I got the new Ridge carbon fiber key case with the little clip on it, and let me just say, it keeps all the keys organized. Fancy. Like I said, I've actually had a Ridge wallet for the last 2 years, and it's been a dream to use. I get a ton of compliments on it. I'm a customer for life. So if you want to get the best offer, click the link down below, ridge.com/Vince. And right now, you can save up to 40% off through December 22nd. That is ridge.com/Vince. Now, counterfeiting's a lot like baking. The most important part of a cake isn't the frosting, it's the base. And for a good counterfeit, it is all about that paper. But the paper that's used for money isn't even really paper. It's a blend of cotton, linen, animal glue, formaldehyde resin, totally normal, to give it that cash feel. But you can't just buy the paper they use for money, although you can buy some that are pretty similar to it, but you're gonna be put on some kind of watch list. So, using fake identities, they order paper samples from all around the world. And although they would pass the feel test, every single sample would fail that pen test. But sometimes what you're looking for is right underneath your nose. So while Natalie was pen testing a sample, she accidentally marked a copy of the Chicago Sun-Times, and the newspaper passed. So Art just walked down to the dumpster at the Chicago Sun-Times and took the same rolls of paper out for free, and it worked. But what about that watermark? That's very easy. He just traced the watermark on a piece of tissue paper and put 2 sheets on the outside, bam. But here's what blew my mind. So counterfeit detectors like this one have a magnet inside to see if there's the magnetic ink used in real money. And Art used the same magnetic ink in his own bills, so they could even pass that. That is how goddamn good these counterfeits work. What about that color changing ink? You just use the same paint they use on lowriders. What about the stamp? You just got it at Kinko's. And at the very end, to give it that feel of a crisp bill, he would top it off with hairspray. So after reconnecting with his old sales team, word spread fast, and his bills were selling like hotcakes, selling $200,000 a month in counterfeits just in Chicago. But if he stayed in Chicago, it was only a matter of time before he was caught. So he decides to travel across the country with his wife, and once a month come back, do a little run of bills. But now Art felt that his counterfeits were so good that he could spend them himself, breaking Da Vinci's rule. But you see, a good counterfeit won't just spend his money anywhere. It's gotta be cleaned. So while they were traveling, they'd go hit the outdoor malls with the young and dumb cashiers and pass bills there. You know, they'd buy a $10 pair of baby shoes with a fake $100 bill. Bam! The 90 bucks is real money. Rinse and repeat. Now you got a couple grand of clean cash. Now by this time, 2 years later, Art had made over $5 million in counterfeit bills. Now, word got around to the Russian mafia that Art had some of the best bills in the game and wanted a small order, to test them out. $100,000 delivered that night. But there was kind of a big problem. Art had promised his in-laws he would drop him off at the airport that same day. But like many guys, he thinks he could do it. So he goes to Chicago, grabs the money, grabs an extra $60K for himself, drops off his in-laws and his wife, and at the airport, his wife's sister wants to hang out with them. Alone. Terrible idea, but Art thinks, why not? So he drives into town with his wife's sister, checks into the hotel, does the deal with the Russians, and as he's winding down, the wife's sister takes a shower, and he thinks, let's smoke a joint, let's a little celebrate. Now the cops knock on the door, with a noise complaint, no big deal. Until Art opens the door and the cops barge in saying that they see a huge bag of weed on the nightstand. Art was on all levels. They find his wife's naked sister in the shower, $60,000 in counterfeit bills, and a big bag of pot in the nightstand. Things didn't look too good, and especially when the Secret Service finally showed up. Now, they actually complimented Art, saying that these were some of the best bills they'd ever seen in their entire career, and that they'd actually been tracking his bills all across the country. But Art was smart. He knew this was all sweet talk, because he couldn't get his mind off of the thought, how could the police see a bag of pot if it was in the nightstand? Well, that's what the judge thought too, and dismissed the entire case, even the counterfeit stuff, on illegal search and seizure. God bless America. And even crazier, Art's wife actually believed him when he said him and the sister were doing nothing. Talk about luck. But now with the face to the name, Art knew the feds, 100% were tailing him. So he heads to his in-laws to figure out some kind of plan. It's to find his father, who had abandoned him at the age of 9. So he finds the name of Art Williams Sr. living up in Alaska, and after exchanging some letters, they decide to meet up. Now, after running into some trouble with the Hells Angels and after stints in prison for burglary, his father ended up in a small fishing town as a mechanic, and he wanted to know if his son had finally an honest job. But like a kid showing off his school project, Art Jr. whips out $5,000 of his counterfeit cash. And rather than telling him to cut it out and maybe think about his kids, his dad asks him if he can make more. But Art tells him about the bust and how he got away with it, and it would be so dumb for him to even counterfeit again. It took 2 weeks for Art to cave into his dad's demand. He was printing again out in Alaska, and although he had 60 grand hang drying in the backyard, without his fancy printing setup, these bills, they weren't up to the best quality. And Art thought how he couldn't just be on the run forever. That's really no way to live. So his dad proposes a grand escape, to do one last counterfeit batch for $5 million, and then retire out in Alaska. So he heads to Chicago, gets the supplies, ships him out to the middle of Alaska. They were gonna do one last run together. Now, Art Jr. made it very clear to his dad that this whole counterfeit game was a secret between the two of them. Every person that knows becomes a liability. But Art Sr. thought that his girlfriend Denise could be trusted, so behind his son's back, he gives Denise $3,000 in counterfeit bills, and even tells her about the whole scheme, and even gives her the task of cleaning it. Take the fake money, buy something cheap, there you go with the change, you get the story. Now, somehow Art Jr. gets word of this and is absolutely furious. His own dad, that he hadn't seen in 20 years, who had abandoned him at the age of 9, had broken his trust within 2 weeks of seeing him. But then it gets even worse, because Anise actually gave the money to a family friend, the Shanigans, to help her in cleaning it. So without his dad's knowledge, Art goes to the house, he burns all of his paper, destroys all of the print equipment, and hides all the counterfeit cash in PVC stashes in the Alaskan forest, and skips out of town. Now, while this is happening, the Shanigans were shopping with the counterfeit cash at the downtown mall, trying to clean it, until 2 cashiers felt the money was a little, fake. And they called the cops, and the Shanigans were arrested. Now, when the Secret Service got involved, the Shanigans knew that shit was real, and it didn't take long for the two to sing like birds. So the Secret Service makes them informants and decides to wiretap their phone to try to get to the bigger fish. Now, the next day, the Shanigans call Anise and tell her that, they had spent all the counterfeit money like good people. And then Art Sr. hops on the call, saying he was picking up an extra 20 grand of Art's new counterfeits for them to clean that night. But when Art Sr. showed up at the house, everything was gone. His son had ditched them like how he had ditched his son 20 years ago. And instead, it was the Secret Service waiting for him, and they'd be arrested. And later that day in Dallas, Texas, Natalie and Art Jr. were arrested as well. Now, Art had really cleaned that house very well because the feds found nothing as evidence. But the prosecutor did have one thing, and that was the recording of them admitting to counterfeiting. Now, at the trial, Anise, so dumb, thought she could take on the Secret Service at trial. Well, let me remind you, the Secret Service has a 99% conviction rate. So she would get 5 years. Art Sr., he would get 5 years. And after counterfeiting $10 million over the course of a decade, Art Jr. got 3 years. Now, Art Jr. had paid the ultimate price for his crime, because on the day he was released from prison, his dad died of a heart attack. The same day. And he'd realized what his father did to him by abandoning him, he was now doing to his own son, and he couldn't let this cycle continue. Now, luckily, people were actually fascinated with Art's story getting out of prison. The Rolling Stone did a profile piece, he was taking interviews, he was getting standing ovations at law enforcement conferences. But he put his entire focus on reconnecting with his 15-year-old son, Art Williams III. You see, he wanted to become a rapper.
I'm the son of a criminal. Daddy moving dirty money like the chemicals. Mr. Counterfeiting, all about the licks, the homes, the chicks, the outfits, the whips.
And he wanted to fund his career to help him to do anything to be legit. August 14th, 2006. When Art Jr. walked into his apartment, he had found a pile of counterfeit bills stacked on the table. They were shoddy, they looked horrendous, they were made by his son. But Art had never taught his kid how to counterfeit. He wanted everything for him to just be legit. But his son had learned by reading this same Rolling Stone article that was about him. And Art was furious. An argument ensued, and his son stormed out of the house with his hands full of counterfeit bills. But just as the police happened to be driving by. Now, Art Jr. had nothing to hide. I mean, he didn't make these bills. They obviously weren't to his quality standard. So he invites the Secret Service in to search the apartment, and they find the printers, the scanners, all laid out just like how he said in that Rolling Stone article. But the problem was that his son was 15 years old and had even told the police his dad had made him. And when the dad is the greatest counterfeit of all time, they believe it's him. Now, the police did end up finding $89,000 of super high quality counterfeits hidden in the house that only Art could have made. But those shoddy counterfeits that were on the table, that was all of his son's work, and Art Jr. would get all of the blame. Now, at the trial, the judge held up one of the super counterfeits and said,
"This would have fooled me. How long did it take you to figure this out?"
15 years.
Have you ever thought of what you could have done with your life if you had spent all of that time doing something good?
And Art took those words to heart. He had spent his entire life perfecting the craft of making a dollar rather than perfecting a skill that would make him dollars. And he knew things had to change. Now, with the son falling on hard times with his dad in prison, a couple years later in 2009, Art III would be arrested for counterfeiting at the age of 18. A son, a father, and a grandfather were all counterfeits. Now, Art Jr. had never learned the value of a dollar because he simply just made him out of thin air. And even worse, he had a court order now that said he couldn't make any money from selling or even telling this story now. But while he was locked up, he had learned to paint, he had studied the masters, and he had took the craftsmanship he had learned from counterfeiting and put it into his art. Now, within a year out of prison, Art had actually caught a break, selling one of his paintings at a prestigious charity auction. And today he owns a gallery in Beverly Hills, and that gallery's name is Da Vinci's.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. So, I've been on for my hour today. I might be back with you tonight. I might not. Peace and love. Peace and love.